On this day in history, we remember the remarkable individuals who shaped our world. Welcome to Who Died Today in History, where we honor their legacies. From artists to leaders, their impact lives on. If you find their stories meaningful, like, subscribe, and hit the bell to stay connected. On the evening of April 14, 1865, just days after the surrender of Confederate General Robert E. Lee, President Abraham Lincoln was fatally shot by actor and Confederate sympathizer John Wilkes Booth at Ford's Theater in Washington, D.C. Lincoln, seated in the presidential box watching Our American Cousin, was unguarded when Booth entered and fired a single bullet into the back of his head. He died the next morning at 7:22 a.m., never regaining consciousness. The first American president to be assassinated, Lincoln's death sent immediate shockwaves across a nation already fractured by civil war. The timing and symbolism of Lincoln's assassination could not have been more poignant. Just as the Union seemed on the brink of healing, its leader, who had urged reconciliation and malice toward none in his second inaugural address, was violently silenced. Booth, believing he was striking a blow for the South, instead became a catalyst for further national mourning and Northern resolve. Lincoln's passing abruptly shifted the course of Reconstruction. His successor, Andrew Johnson, lacked Lincoln's political skill and moral authority, leading to a harsher, more tumultuous period of reintegration and racial conflict. Lincoln's death did more than cement his legacy, it sanctified it. The image of the martyr president, slain for the cause of liberty and union, became a powerful American myth. His words were immortalized in stone and speech, from the Lincoln Memorial to countless schoolroom recitations of the Gettysburg Address. Artists, poets, and historians enshrined him as a symbol of justice, compassion, and perseverance. This tragic end underscores humanity's deep connection to leaders who transcend politics and embody higher ideals. In remembering Lincoln, we confront the fragility of progress and the enduring struggle for unity and equality. His assassination reveals how mortality often elevates public figures into timeless icons, reminders of both what was lost and what remains worth striving for. Through monuments, literature, and collective memory, Abraham Lincoln continues to shape the American conscience, his life and death echoing across generations. R. Lee Ermey, a retired U.S. Marine Corps Staff Sergeant turned actor, passed away on April 15, 2018, from complications related to pneumonia. He was 74. Best known for his unforgettable role as Gunnery Sergeant Hartman in Stanley Kubrick's Full Metal Jacket, Ermey brought authenticity and intensity to a character that became iconic, in part because it reflected his real-life experience as a drill instructor during the Vietnam era. His death, though natural, marked the end of a career that uniquely bridged military service and popular culture. Ermey's passing came at a time when America's relationship with its military, especially its Vietnam legacy, was undergoing renewed scrutiny. As the country continued to reckon with the psychological and political scars of past conflicts, Ermey's presence as a symbol of military toughness and discipline remained a touchstone in media. His on-screen persona mirrored a generation raised on order, resilience, and patriotic duty, even as the real-world complexities of war began to be portrayed with increasing nuance. The immediate consequence of Ermey's death was a wave of tributes from veterans, fans, and filmmakers who saw him not just as an actor, but as a cultural figure who honored military values through storytelling. His work influenced public perceptions of the Marine Corps and military life, reinforcing both admiration and a critical conversation about the rigors of service. As Military Times noted, Ermey represented the Corps with pride and humor. In death, Ermey's legend was amplified, not as a political figure or a wartime hero in the traditional sense, but as a man who embodied the spirit of the American soldier. Through film, television appearances, and advocacy for veterans, he helped preserve the memory and ethos of military life. Ermey's legacy reveals how mortality and memory often intersect through cultural representation. His gruff voice and steely presence live on in pop culture, symbolizing a form of masculine idealism that continues to captivate and challenge audiences. He is immortalized not through grand monuments, but through the enduring impact of a single performance that continues to echo with command and conviction. Greta Garbo, the enigmatic Swedish-American film star, died of natural causes on April 15, 1990, at the age of 84 in New York City. After retiring from film at just 36, Garbo became a legend, shrouded in mystery, famously withdrawing from public life and refusing interviews or roles for the remainder of her days. Her quiet death, like her self-imposed exile, mirrored the growing 20th century tension between fame and privacy, a dichotomy that Garbo defined long before it became a cultural norm. Garbo's passing marked the final curtain call for an era of Hollywood glamour that prized mystique over exposure. She was one of the few stars to bridge silent cinema and early talkies with seamless grace, earning critical acclaim and mass adoration. Yet, her withdrawal from fame during the height of her stardom spoke to a deeper discomfort with the rapidly changing media landscape. In an age increasingly dominated by tabloid scrutiny and public ownership of celebrity, Garbo's death reminded the world of an older, more elusive idea of stardom, one based on presence, not access. The immediate reaction to her passing was one of reverence and renewed fascination. Tributes poured in from film historians and celebrities alike, praising her timeless beauty, talent, and self-possession. Her legend was not only preserved, but amplified. According to the New York Times, Garbo was the most alluring, the most elusive, the most mythic of all the great movie stars. Garbo's death also reinforced broader truths about how society engages with mortality and memory, especially when it comes to public figures. By removing herself from the spotlight, she became the canvas upon which the world projected ideals of elegance, melancholy, and restraint. Her image remains immortalized in black and white portraits, retrospectives, and scholarly works that revisit her performances with awe. In commemorating Garbo, we reflect on a human desire to preserve what is rare and untouchable. Her story reminds us that sometimes absence can speak louder than presence, and in a world consumed by visibility, true legacy might lie in the things we choose to keep hidden. Whitey Herzog, the Hall of Fame baseball manager renowned for his innovative Whitey Ball strategy, passed away on April 15, 2024, at the age of 92 in St. Louis, Missouri. His death, from natural causes, marked the end of a transformative era in Major League Baseball. Just days earlier, Herzog had attended the St. Louis Cardinals' home opener, underscoring his enduring connection to the team he led to 3 National League pennants and a World Series title in 1982. Herzog's managerial career was defined by Whitey Ball, a style emphasizing speed, defense, and pitching over power hitting. This approach not only brought success to the Cardinals, but also reflected a shift in baseball strategy during the 1980s, challenging the prevailing emphasis on home runs. His methods showcased adaptability and a deep understanding of the game's nuances, qualities that resonated in an era of evolving sports dynamics. The immediate aftermath of Herzog's passing saw an outpouring of tributes, from the baseball community. Players, fellow managers, and fans celebrated his contributions, with MLB Commissioner Rob Manfred acknowledging Herzog as a consistent winner and an accomplished manager who left a lasting legacy. His death prompted reflections on a managerial philosophy that prioritized team cohesion and strategic play over individual accolades. Herzog's legacy is immortalized through his induction into the National Baseball Hall of Fame in 2010 and the St. Louis Cardinals Hall of Fame in 2014. Beyond these honors, his influence persists in the strategic approaches of modern baseball managers who value versatility and tactical acumen. His life and career continue to be celebrated through documentaries, retrospectives, and the memories of those who witnessed his impact firsthand. Herzog's passing serves as a reminder of the enduring nature of legacy in sports. While mortality claims even the most iconic figures, their philosophies and contributions can transcend time, shaping the future of the disciplines they once dominated. In commemorating Herzog, we acknowledge the profound influence one individual can have on a sport's evolution and the collective memory of its community. Clifton James, a veteran character actor best known for his portrayal of the boisterous Southern Sheriff J.W. Pepper in the James Bond films Live and Let Die, and The Man with the Golden Gun, died of natural causes on April 15, 2017, at the age of 96. He passed away at his home in Oregon, surrounded by family. Though his death was peaceful and expected due to age, it marked the loss of a performer whose roles captured a particular flavor of mid-20th century American cinema, larger than life, humorous, and richly drawn. James's passing didn't shock the world in the manner of a statesman or pop icon, yet it resonated with generations of film lovers who recognized his unique ability to embody the culture and contradictions of the American South, despite being a New York native. His characters often reflected the cinematic fascination of the 1970s, with law enforcement figures who straddled the line between comedy and critique, a nod to the broader cultural tensions of that era, particularly around authority and regional identity. The immediate consequence of his death was a wave of appreciation for the depth of his career, which extended far beyond Bond films. James was a decorated World War II veteran, a Broadway actor, and a frequent supporting presence in television and film, appearing in Cool Hand Luke, 1967, The Reavers, 1969, and 8 Men Out. His roles reflected an era when character actors added texture and authenticity to storytelling, unsung heroes of Hollywood's golden age. James's death, while not history-altering, added to the ongoing reflection on how we remember the craftsmen of entertainment, the steady figures who may not have headlined, but whose presence enriched the cultural fabric. His performances are preserved in the films that continue to be rediscovered by new audiences, and in the nostalgic lens through which the 1970s cinema is often viewed today. In remembering figures like James, we see how memory in art and culture often privileges not just the towering icons, but also those whose authenticity and dedication brought stories to life. His career, honored posthumously in tributes by the New York Times and Variety, underscores the value of enduring, if quieter, legacies. Eunice Muñoz, one of Portugal's most revered stage and screen actresses, died of natural causes on April 15, 2022, at the age of 93. Her passing marked the end of an era for Portuguese theater and film, as she had been a towering presence in the arts for over 80 years. Muñoz's death was not sudden or tragic, but it resonated deeply within the cultural life of Portugal, as it signified the loss of a national treasure who had embodied the evolution of the country's artistic identity throughout the 20th and early 21st centuries. Her long and accomplished career spanned both dictatorship and democracy, reflecting the resilience of artistic expression even under political oppression. Performing during Antonio de Oliveira Salazar's Estado Novo regime, Muñoz navigated a time when censorship was widespread, and the arts served as subtle vessels of resistance. Her portrayals of strong, emotional, and morally complex women offered audiences a quiet form of empowerment and truth, even in the face of authoritarianism. The immediate response to her death included an outpouring of national mourning, with the Portuguese president and prime minister offering official condolences. Cultural institutions honored her legacy with tributes and performances dedicated to her memory, reflecting how deeply she was woven into the nation's collective identity. Her death amplified her legendary status, prompting reflection on the role of actors in shaping a country's soul, not just through entertainment, but through the preservation of history, emotion, and conscience. Eunice Muñoz's passing reveals humanity's enduring need to honor those who channel collective feeling through the arts. We remember such figures through biographies, stage revivals, film retrospectives, and public honors. Muñoz herself was awarded the Grand Cross of the Order of St. James of the Sword, one of Portugal's highest civilian honors. In this way, she joins a lineage of artists whose memory persists not only through the roles they played, but through the emotional truth they gave to their audiences. Her death reminds us that the arts endure as a powerful mirror to societal values, and the legacy of artists like Muñoz continues to shape national identity long after the curtain falls. Jonathan Crombie, best known for his beloved role as Gilbert Blythe in the 1985 adaptation of Anne of Green Gables, died suddenly of a brain hemorrhage on April 15, 2015, at the age of 48. His passing, though natural in medical terms, came unexpectedly and struck a chord of sorrow among fans of the cherished series. Crombie's death was not just the loss of a talented actor, but the end of a tangible link to a character who had become a cultural icon across generations in Canada and beyond. The values reflected in Crombie's most iconic role aligned with a gentler, more hopeful view of masculinity, one grounded in empathy, intelligence, and humility. In an era often overshadowed by more aggressive or stoic portrayals of male leads, Crombie's Gilbert stood apart. He was a partner, not a conqueror, and his death reignited conversations about the importance of such representations in media, particularly for young audiences. In a time when society continues to grapple with gender norms and emotional expression, Crombie's quiet legacy found renewed relevance. The immediate aftermath of his passing saw an outpouring of tributes from fans, co-stars, and Canadian cultural institutions. Megan Follows, who played Anne Shirley, spoke publicly of her grief, describing Crombie as a sweet, true friend. CBC re-aired the Anne of Green Gables films, and fans revisited the series with nostalgia and renewed appreciation. His portrayal became more than just a performance. It became a memory held dear by countless viewers. Crombie's death underscores how the mortality of an actor can elevate the timelessness of a role. While he may have played many parts, it is Gilbert Blythe who remains immortalized in the hearts of audiences. Through books, adaptations, fan tributes, and public memory, Crombie continues to live on in the cultural landscape of Canada and the wider world. His passing reveals the profound emotional power of art to bind us to characters and, by extension, to the actors who bring them to life. In commemorating such figures, we reflect not only on their contributions, but on the parts of ourselves they helped shape. In this way, Jonathan Crombie's gentle legacy endures, Margaretta Scott, a distinguished English actress whose career spanned stage, film, and television, passed away from natural causes on April 15, 2005, at the age of 93. Her death marked the quiet end of an era tied closely to the golden age of British theatre and the early years of television, a time when classical training and Shakespearean gravitas were the standard bearers of acting prestige. Though not a household name in modern pop culture, Scott left an indelible mark on British performing arts through her dignified presence and deep connection to classical literature and performance. Born in 1912, Scott came of age in a world still reeling from World War I and entered the theater during a time of cultural rebirth between the wars. She trained under luminaries like Michel Saint-Denis and became renowned for her work with the Royal Shakespeare Company. Her best-known screen role was in Things to Come, 1936, a film adaptation of H.G. Wells' vision of the future. This early venture into science fiction cinema reflected her willingness to embrace innovation while remaining rooted in tradition. The natural circumstances of Scott's death echo the graceful endurance of a life dedicated to art rather than spectacle. In an era where celebrity often hinges on controversy or rapid visibility, Scott's quiet dedication and longevity reflected a different kind of cultural value, one grounded in discipline, poise, and the preservation of high art. Her death did not cause public upheaval, but it did prompt recognition from institutions like the BBC and The Guardian, who remembered her as a bridge between eras in British performance. The consequences of her passing were not immediate in a historical sense, but rather reflective. Her legacy reminds us of the importance of continuity in cultural heritage, how each generation builds upon the quiet brilliance of those who came before. Margaretta Scott may not have dominated headlines, but her contributions live on through recorded performances, critical retrospectives, and the institutions she helped sustain. Her death and the dignified remembrance that followed highlight humanity's reverence for artistry that endures beyond the limelight. We immortalize such figures not through statues or national holidays, but through the roles they shaped, the stories they told, and the craft they upheld. Jean-Paul Sartre, the towering French philosopher, playwright, and political activist, died of natural causes on April 15, 1980, at the age of 74. His passing in Paris marked the end of a profoundly influential voice in 20th century existentialism and Marxist thought. Suffering from health issues exacerbated by years of heavy smoking and stress, Sartre's final years were marked by physical decline but sustained intellectual activity. His death was not violent or dramatic, but the cultural void it left was significant, particularly in an era increasingly skeptical of grand ideological narratives. Sartre emerged as a public intellectual during and after World War II, articulating a philosophy of existential freedom and responsibility that resonated with a generation reeling from the trauma of fascism and genocide. His refusal of the 1964 Nobel Prize in Literature, on the grounds that a writer should not become an institution, reflected the integrity and contradictions of a man who championed both personal liberty and political revolution. His death symbolized the twilight of the era of the engagé intellectual, someone who lived at the intersection of art, philosophy, and activism. The immediate aftermath of Sartre's passing saw a remarkable turnout at his funeral, where over 50,000 people lined the streets of Paris to mourn him. This public response underscored how deeply Sartre had embedded himself into the fabric of French identity, not only as a philosopher, but as a conscience. The Cold War was entering its final chapters, and the utopian promises of Marxism were beginning to unravel. In that context, Sartre's death was both the closing of a chapter and the fading of a certain intellectual optimism. We remember Sartre through his works, Being and Nothingness, No Exit, and The Words, as well as through portrayals in film, theater, and critical studies. His legacy reminds us that the thinker, too, can become a legend, their words echoing beyond their time. Sartre's death invites reflection on how we immortalize those who challenge us to confront the human condition, through literature, through public discourse, and through the enduring tension between freedom and responsibility.